Welcome everybody, good morning. It's really nice to see such a huge audience. I'm really a little bit overwhelmed, but I'm at the same time really happy. So the question for today is, are we agile enough? My name is Joanna Adamczyk and I am a Scrum Master, so I think that I can share my experience with you about all those things that are connected to Agile in your companies. And the second title is The Keys to Smart Agility in a Big Organization, which means that I will share my experience from Nokia, where I work, and our company is really big. But I think that even working in startups, etc., you can find it useful, hopefully. Before we start, I would like to ask you, do you work in Agile, Scrum, or less, or something? Could you raise your hands, please? Oh, yeah, I think that more than 50%. Do you like it? Raise your hands. Yeah, a little bit less. All right, are there any Scrum Masters or Agile coaches here? Not much, only a few of you. Okay, so I'll try to take your perspective into my presentation. What can you expect from today? The first thing is all you have to know before you start using Agile. So as whether you want to start or you want to go through the transformation, or maybe you already started, but there are things that you have to remember and you have to keep in mind. Then we will move to how to make it easy and beneficial. So I think that most of you who raised hands might find it interesting. And at the end, we have to know where to stop in particular. This is my picture when I'm petting a tiger, and I would like to tell you that transforming toward the Agile is a little bit like petting a tiger. You don't jump on a tiger, you don't squeeze a tiger because he might get angry. And trust me, people who actually are doing the Agile transformation might get angry on occasion, especially if you push too much. But I will go into that topic a little bit later. All right, I didn't tell you this, but this is gonna be more like philosophy, not like technology. So let's start with asking questions. So what do you think is the biggest question in the world that changes lives, moves the world? I'll tell you. This is the question, why? So each and every time we start with new way of working, with new methodology, or whatever new project you started doing this, you always have to ask yourself and ask your people, why do we doing that? And if you don't give the reason, and you don't have the reason, and you don't have your heart into that. So always start with asking why. This is really important. So why do we do Agile? If you do some kind of research, you'll see that there are quite, let's just say, official benefits of using an Agile. I'll go quickly through them. So the first thing, it might be the most important, is high product quality. How do we assure the high product quality? One thing is whatever you can see on the right side of the screen, so inspection and adaptation loop. There is a kind of assumption that we divide our project into smaller parts, so we are supposed to deliver potentially shippable product, if you know what I mean. So something that is tested, a quality needs to be there in place, and client has to know, and he might have to see the results of the test. So this is the most important thing in Agile environment. And of course, I mentioned the client, so customer satisfaction is the second crucial thing. If we are working in Agile environment, we do have a constant contact with our customer. So after each and every iteration, we just meet a client, we just check whether he's happy or not with whatever we have produced, and then we collect the feedback from a client. Yeah, sounds great and easy. Another one, better control of the product. This one, of course, is connected with inspection and adaptation loop. So all of those points, we all check whether whatever we're going with our product is like the same direction that the client wants us to be, wants us to produce, and we are checking after each and every iteration. And that leads us to our risk reduction as well. And there are kind of informal reasons. I need to remind you, we're asking ourselves, why do we do Agile? So informal reasons are, it's really cool and really trendy nowadays. If you see most of the IT companies here in Krakow or all over the world, they are using Agile methodologies. What else? It's naturally supports learning and growth, especially if you're using it correctly. If you're going through all the retrospectives, people there are trying to evolve. Each and every iteration, it's all about making the way of working better and more suitable for ourselves. And after all, yeah, it's fun. Trust me, I think that some of you, my colleagues from work, from my team, they can actually admit that it might be a fun. And there are, let's just say, anti-reasons. And if you ask you a question, why your team is using Agile, sometimes it might be the case that you say somebody told us to do so, somebody wants us to do so, and they believe, or they said it works. We don't believe, but they do. Whoever they are, let's just say managers, or let's just say Agile coaches, even Scrum Master, they say, oh, trust me, it works. What will we get? An angry tiger. So they say it works, and our people don't believe. Does it work? Does it really happen? Does it improve our project? Not really. Or maybe. But let me give you kind of example. I noticed that in some organizations, there is a kind of continuous transformation situation. So let's just say on the left side, your left side, we have a really important manager, or whoever it is. It might be Scrum coach, or Agile coach, and even Scrum Master. And on your right side, there is a team, the team. So the very important person, he or she said, look, we are an IT company, and Scrum works for IT companies, so let's use it here. And we started using Scrum for a few iterations. The situation isn't really easy for the team, but it's not very easy because nobody likes changes. They are really difficult for us. But let's say implementing Scrum isn't that difficult. But after some research, the very important person on the left side realized that the project we are working on is really big. It's really huge. So we have to use scaled Scrum. And then he launched another kind of transformation. Team is not very happy, but because they were told to do so, of course they are doing it. Everybody wants to, follow the rules. And then after a few iterations, the very important person says, come on, there is a new, exciting, great Agile methodology, and let's switch to that. What do you think might happen to the team? I don't know whether you heard about, it's called frustration aggression hypothesis. Those people are confused and frustrated. They don't know what is actually going on in this project. So it might even lead to them being a little bit aggressive and angry. So the same situation as with a tiger. We need to be careful about this. So how do we start with Agile in the project? The first key and the first crucial thing is to change the mindset. So the first thing, ask for a reason. So you as testers, you are as developers, You ask your bosses, your managers, your Scrum Masters, of course, what is the reason why we are doing this? And if you are Scrum Masters or very important persons, give the reason to people, because then they feel a part of the project. Another thing is that everybody has an impact, and this is this power to the people thing there. You have to remember that as a part of Agile project, you have the right to raise your hand, ask questions, ask for the reason, and to decide after retrospectives, after demos, whatever it is, you have the right to decide. If your bosses don't let you to decide about the way of working, you have to give them, for example, Scrum Primer, and say, look, I'm a part of this project, so technically I do have a right to decide, because this is one of the assumptions of every Agile methodology. And of course, last but not least, we have to show benefits, what we can gain from this transformation, why do you using that? All right, let me switch to the second one. So let's assume that we have a Scrum or Agile in your project, but now how to proceed with that, how to handle that. And let me give you this kind of example of perfect world. So let's see, we have to implement a web page for small online shop. We have one client, which is, let's just say, an owner of this shop. And we have a small Scrum team. If you want to do it in Agile or Scrum style, we got a quick feedback from a client. So the customer is, of course, satisfied because he can decide what is going to happen with this web page. We have testers in place, so we can have a fast and very good regression. So we assure the best quality. And of course, we can adapt the requirement changes quite quickly. Let's just say we have 2 weeks iteration, so every second week we meet our client. He, of course, can change his mind. And we can follow and just respond to his needs. That's the perfect world. And let me show you our reality. This is what we have in Nokia, but this is only one component. So we are writing code for base stations, and the one I'm working on, it has around 800 people involved in the project. It has 80 teams in different countries, not only here in Krakow. We have 3,000 tests in regression suite. And we have 3 million lines of code. So it's enormously huge. It is a really big project, and all the logistics, all of the decision making is much, much more difficult than in the previous one, in the previous example. So what do we do there? There's a nice saying, I really love it, that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So what I want to tell you is, whenever we start with transition in this huge environment, we need to be careful, as with a tiger, or as with any other wild animal. So what do? We introduce daily meetings, but this is not like we put all of those Agile or Scrum tools at one moment. So we introduce one tool at a time, and we let people to get used to that. And we give people a meaning that this is really important. So let me tell you that with my team, I've been working for around 7 years. And most of the time we had a daily at 10 o'clock. So even if I'm on vacations or wherever I am at the moment, at 10 o'clock is the moment when I just trigger a little bit and say, something important is happening. It's 10 o'clock. I know it's a little bit weird, But trust me, daily meeting is something that bind the team together, let them share, and let them be a part of something bigger. And as you can see, in our case, it's really being a part of something huge. So this is the first step. If you want to have Agile in your project, you need to plan incrementally. You need to divide your project into small portions. And the next one, we start to propagate this inspection and adaptation culture, I would even say. So each and every iteration, we correct a little bit whatever we are doing in a manner of project itself and in a manner of way of working. So how we do whatever we are doing, we need to adapt to the new situation. Another one, which is, I would say, the heart of a Scrum, the power of retrospective. So this is the moment for all the team members when they can share whatever went wrong, whatever they feel like doesn't work in the team. Even in this way we can improve the relationship we have in our team. I know this is, again, more like philosophy, not like technology, but a relationship and a team, it's very important, also even crucial. So you actually introduce those tools, but you do it slowly and step by step. If you have them in place, you can start experimenting, because Agile is also about being brave enough to try new things. But this is all kind of the mindset or attitude. So then you can experiment, take whatever works for your team, leave the rest, and try with using a new way. So we have the second key unlocked. First thing is that whenever you start with Agile transformation, you start with those tools that you believe as a Scrum Master or even as a team member, tester, developer, you believe that work for your situation. And you start step by step. You don't try to use all of them at the same time. It's impossible, especially in this kind of environment we have there in Nokia. If you have this, if you choose, like, for example, to having a daily in your team, that is really great to test the change with a small group. So, for example, you take one of those teams, I would say the bravest one, so whoever is ready for this kind of change, we are testing the new approach, and then we revise those results. What went good, what went wrong, each and every time this inspection adaptation loop, so that you know what kind of problems we can face when you launch it for example, 10 teams, or 20 teams, or 80 teams, as we have on my component in Nokia. And then we're starting the next iteration again. So you can feel this kind of cycle, yeah? But always have to remember that we need to do baby steps, make baby steps. And this is the third part, when to stop. So assuming that you give a reason to your teams, you know why you are using Agile, then you're proceeding slowly and smoothly, as with a tiger. And then when enough is enough. So you can imagine that we have a team who actually did a lot of work to implement the new approach. Trust me, every kind of a change is it costs you and your people quite a lot, because this is kind of unstable environment. When we go through the transition, there's something new. Nobody likes those changes, so they might be a little bit tired. But they adapted whatever we wanted them to adapt. And then we're asking themselves, or they're asking me as a Scrum Master, are we doing well? Look, our dailies are a little bit too long, and we still can't estimate in story points. They do have doubts. And after all, they ask, are we agile enough? We are using, this term, the term Scrum but. So we have Scrum, but we don't use this, we don't use that, etc., etc. I know that there in the world there are a lot of Scrum evangelists, and they will tell you like, okay, take the Scrum guide and take everything literally. I would say, and this is my, let's just say, personal opinion, but I just have it from experience, not from like philosophical, thinking process. There has to be a time when you stop your transformation. Why is that? Because we do want people to be in a stable environment and focus on their work. So it is really hard to define this moment, even for myself, because I'm usually kind of like hardworking person, so I always want more and more and more. So you probably, as a team members, I bet you always want to be better, to improve yourself. But keep in mind that, okay, we have some of the tools that are there in books. People feel comfortable with them. People got used to them. So it's a time to say, okay, we are agile enough, and we can stop then. We can draw the line and stop the transformation. And then everybody's happy because, they are in their stable environment and they can focus on your work. So you have to keep it in mind. If you are not a Scrum Master who have a right to say, okay, we stop now, we just leave it as it is, even if you are not, you remember that you have a right, remember the power to the people. So you have a right to give a feedback to your bosses that, okay, for us, it's enough for now. We can go back to the transformation later. Remember, you do have rights to protest. So let's just say, if you're asking yourself, or your team are asking themselves, are we agile enough? You need to keep calm, be agile, but be in this kind of a comfort zone. Let them to be in this kind of a comfort zone for a while before you start the next iteration or next transformation. You have to keep in mind that nobody's perfect. So even though I really like my teams and my team members, I know that they are making mistakes. So sometimes it's a big mistake during one iteration. But this is only 2 weeks. We can inspect it, we can adapt to that, and we can go on, and we are still better, or we're making ourselves to be better. So this is the first thing you have to keep in mind. Even if something goes wrong, you can always inspect and adapt, and this is the nature of Agile. Second one, really important, is to act bottom up. So you are mainly taking the feedback from the people who are those real soldiers, like engineers, I would say. So their, let's just say, opinions and their feedback needs to be taken into consideration, and it's really valuable. And again, don't make it too serious. It's fun. Trust me, I'll tell you, somebody told you, you need to have fun here. But it is. So the third key, one of the most important ones, is to know where to stop. Of course, you keep trying to be better, but if you feel tired, if your people feel fed up with wherever the transformation brought them, you just need to have courage to say, all right, we draw the line and we stop for now. Keep in mind that agility is just a tool to achieve the company's targets. It's not a target itself. So we are using it as a tool, but this is not our main goal. Our main goal is to write the code, to make sure the quality is in place and our customer is happy. How we are doing that, that doesn't matter, as long as we are following the rules and we are achieving our main target. Another thing is this KISS, keep it simple, smart guy. Remember that this is not that complicated. Agile is not really like, the huge science. And we don't want it to be. So we just want to keep it as simple as it could be. And another one, the last one, we need to keep basic foundations. So corporate culture and values are the same here in Nokia. This is a big company, so we have to keep it in mind that we can't make it like startup style company. And we need to have few other, let's just say, processes in place still. So we are a little bit agile, but we have like some heavy processes, and they have to be there to make those 80 teams on one component to work together. It's really, really important. All right, just to sum it up, the few things, the few key points for you to remember. You always ask why, whatever you do, whatever you want to introduce. Attitude, your attitude and attitude of your people working with you is a key factor. If they don't have the hearts into whatever we are doing, it's not gonna work. Make baby steps, so do it slowly, as with a tiger, with the courage, of course, but not too fast, especially in such a big environment as we have in Nokia. Of course, you have to remember about your roots, about the company culture, about the company values, not to break them, not to cross them. And the most important one, you have to know where to stop. You have to ask yourself, is that enough? Or we can push more, but again, don't cross the line, don't push too much. You don't want to have an angry tiger. This one looks like he's smiling, I hope. Couldn't find real smiling tiger, but I hope you can just feel that, yeah, he's happy. So that's all from my side for today. I'm waiting for questions, hopefully the other. But yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much. I really like you as an audience. Thank you.
Okay, now it's time to switch to the questions. So let's go to the slide, though.
We still have 2 more minutes, so you may wait.
Guys up there, can you switch to Slido, please?
Somebody reacted. Good.
Yay. Okay, so we have...
Brilliant, I love it.
What's the fun part in Agile? My sad colleague can't recognize it.
Okay, of course we don't have much time, but I think I got it. Your friend is sad because probably somebody crossed this line, and it's this frustration, aggression stuff. But what is the fun part? For me, the most fun part is our retrospectives. So we are using cards, we are using, we're actually having some kind of retrospective games. You may like it or not, I think that it is fun. And the second one is, as I said, this kind of relationship you have in a team. So I feel really connected to the people I'm working with. Believe me or not, yeah, it's a fun. And they're sitting there, some of them, and we still we have a good relationship to each other. That makes me happy.
Okay. Next question. What are the good ways to create an atmosphere within a Scrum team that encourages collaboration and communication?
Yeah, the first part is you personally have to be open person. I know that this is really hard for engineers. Yeah, but you need to open first. And as I said, you need to have this kind of attitude. let me give you an example. If somebody tell you, you have to pray every single day or twice a day, you say the prayer and nothing is actually changing. If somebody told you, you need to like every single day sit in silence, think about all the people you really love, your family, your spouses, yeah, whatever just makes you happy, your kids maybe, to appreciate them. And then you start daydreaming about the future, what you want to achieve, what you want to make happen. And then when you know why you are doing this, you can feel this kind of like relief. And this kind of prayer does make sense. So, 2 things. Be open, keep smiling. You saw me with the tiger. Yeah, I had quite a big smile there, even though I was scared. So, yeah, be open and always search for a reason why they're doing this. And of course, use games.
Next question. Everyone is talking about all the benefits of Agile, but what to do? But what do you think are the biggest perks or restraints from using Agile in the project?
Could you just like specify it a little bit more, or is it impossible here?
If you raise a hand, I can go up there with the microphone.
Okay, thank you, Eva. Sorry for that, you'll have a chance to...
No problem. I just wanted to know more details, like how Agile is a big methodology, but sometimes there are projects when it might not be the best solution. And like, how would you specify which projects might not be the best for that?
All right, thank you. That's a tricky one, because as I said, like many people believe that even here in Nokia, we shouldn't use Agile because it's too big and it's nearly close to impossible to release the potentially shippable product. But with this kind of approach, when you just like, borrow a few things from Agile, but you don't go completely crazy about Agile, it might be beneficial for you. For sure, all the difficulties are connected with the size of the project. This is what we are talking about today. So for big projects, yeah, it's really difficult. All the building system, regression, everything, it's a huge work to get there. So you need to analyze the costs, whether you can afford it or not. But even if this kind of environment, you can just take few things. Like the simple one, start doing the daily meetings. It's only 15 minutes, and it can be beneficial for your team. Whatever is the size, whatever kind of method you used before, just try it. And again, I encourage you to experiment with different things before you launch it to the whole company.
Okay, next question. How to present a problem on retrospective meeting if it's related to a particular person when you don't want to be rude or treated as aggressor or whatever?
All right. During our retrospectives, we have kind of a rule, and you probably all know this. This is Las Vegas rule. So whatever happens during the retrospective, it stays there in the retrospective room. It's kind of, let's just say, difficult for people to be that open. But trust me, even the most, let's just say, introverted engineers, when they need to meet those people every single day on a daily meeting, and for example, there's one person in my team who used to be late for every single daily meeting. Trust me, those people will just bring it up during the daily because they are so angry, like, oh, it happened again and again and again. And I only say, like, okay, we have a retrospective in 4 days. Can you just, like, wait a little bit? And he's, like, more and more angry. And then he just explodes. But, of course, we can forgive ourselves because we have this kind of relationship in our team. And yeah, so even the most difficult topics might be brought up here, but you need to create a space full of trust, and this is like a tricky one.
Okay, next question is already there. I work in a group made only of testers. Is this agile or wannabe agile?
I would say the assumption is that you do have cross-functional team. So it might be kind of wannabe agile, but if you guys are happy with that and you think that it works, it's not a problem, you know? And don't let anybody to say that, oh, you're not agile enough. It's not true. Just take whatever works for your team and keep trying, experimenting, prototyping. It's gonna be okay.
I think we have time for one more question. From your experience, what works better? Testers, part of the team, or separate team that tests ready part of code after sprint finishes? More waterfall.
Yeah, that's a good one, because I have to admit that in Nokia, we are actually trying different approaches. So we started with like purely development teams. Then we merged and we started making cross-functional teams. But the scope of work is sometimes not suitable for this kind of cross-functional team. So sometimes it just like work as two separate teams, which is of course not according to books. I would say it's good to have the cross-functional team, because I can observe how people work together, even though they don't have the same item, but they help each other because they know each other, because they have different sets of skills. So it is worth to try this, to merge like development and test part. But if you try it for a few iterations and even your team said like, it's not working, you can just do whatever is said, like, you know, just roll back to more waterfall part. As I said, take whatever you believe works for you and be agile enough.
Okay, this will be the last question. I've got colleagues who absolutely hate retrospectives and other Scrum meetings. How to convince them it's useful and fun?
Do you remember at the beginning I asked you whether you like Scrum or not? I think that this is kind of a fashionable behavior to complain about the Scrum a little bit. So I wouldn't try to convince. Maybe it's not appropriate what I'm going to say, but sometimes you need to just use some tricks. So with my team, we had this kind of situation when we had a lot of problems, but they didn't want to have a retrospectives. So I offered them, okay, let's go out and have a pizza together. I don't remember, probably it didn't include beers, but just a pizza. So we ate, we spent some time together, and they started raising those topics like, you know, this colleague, he's new, he's not experienced, we don't have a time to give it to him, etc., etc. So I made like let's just say mental notes. And somebody just brought up another topic, and after all, I said like, congratulations, guys, we just had a retro. It was a trick. They were a little bit angry, but after all, we had some pizza, and we solved 2 problems, so everybody was happy. Sometimes you have to like try different approaches. Now we have this kind of tradition in my team that yeah, we're having like a cake or a lard or even pickles during the retrospectives, and this is like an easy trick just to bring a food and everybody will be happy. Try different things. Yeah.
Okay, that was the last question for this presentation. Let's give a big applause to Joanna.
Thank you.